Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Well, good morning. The time being 9 a.m, I declare open the general meeting for the Gladstone Regional Council for the 15th of August 2023. Obviously, I'm zooming in, so I can't see if everyone's present. I believe Councillor Churchill's probably teamsing in as well. But do we have any apologies this morning?
Councillor Churchill's an apology, Mr Mayor. We'll require a resolution for that one.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a mover that the apology from Councillor Churchill be received, please? Moved. I can't see Khan. I'll hand up to you shortly, but who is moving that?
Councillor Trevor.
Thank you. And a seconder?
Councillor O'Grady.
Thank you. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, councillors, is messages of condolence. Do we have any messages of condolence? Make my screen bigger. No messages of condolence. The next item on the agenda is prior notifications of conflicts of interest. Tanya, do we have any prior notifications?
No prior notifications, Mayor.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda before I hand over to the Deputy Mayor is the Mayor's statement on current issues, and I'll just bring mine up here. So firstly, I'd like to start by saying that the Deputy Mayor, CEO, myself, obviously attended the CQ Rock meeting in Emerald last week. That was obviously a combination of all councils in Central Queensland coming together as part of our responsibility there on the Central Queensland Regional Organisation of Councils. And then on that Friday afternoon, I was honoured to officially open the new ETU office in Gladstone, the Electrical Trades Union office in Gladstone. The ETU members will play a critical role in the delivery of the Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan, particularly here in Gladstone and in Central Queensland. And it's the confidence in Gladstone's future that continues. And this is just another indicator of that renewable energy journey that has been set out in our Gladstone Region Economic Transition Roadmap. So it's well underway, and we've seen the investment from Powerlink, and we are now seeing the Electrical Trades Union opening a new office, a new home here in Gladstone. Those members, as I said, will play a key role in this energy transition. Also, of course, we had the Mayor's Youth Breakfast. Almost 200 people, young people, acknowledged for their commitment to their chosen area, whether it's academic, whether it's sporting, whether it's cultural, whether it's being just involved in the community. So it was fantastic to be there at the Gladstone Entertainment Convention Centre and acknowledge those young people in our community that have done so much in their area. So it was very exciting times to see that. Also, councillors, that same day, we had our Staff Service Awards. We had 50 employees that we were celebrating their milestones with council this year. 24 were celebrating for 10 years service, 11 for 15 years service, 10 for 20 years service, 3 celebrating 25, and of course 1 for 30 and 1 for 40 years. That's a combined 750 years of service to the Gladstone region by those staff. So as I said, one staff member was celebrating 40 years, and that's Sandra Crawford, who began her journey with council in Miriamvale Shire in 1983. So very long time for Sandra. She's very well acknowledged in the Miriamvale community, but right across the Gladstone region. And of course, Marcus Dittman, everyone knows Ditto, 30 years of service to the Gladstone region as well, when he started in 1992 at Gladstone City Council. And then we had Scott McDonald celebrating 25 years, along with Rod Miller and Kelvin Wright. So that's just some of the staff members that we acknowledged on Wednesday, I think it was last week, for their contribution to our community. So thank you very much to all staff who were acknowledged on that day. This Sunday is the Porter Park Fun Run. I know councillors are getting involved. I certainly will be participating. I don't know how I'm going to survive the 10K run, but anyway, we'll see how we go. We'll give it a go. It might be a bit of a run, walk, jog for me. We'll see how we go. And of course, the Matildas will play in the FIFA World Cup semi-final on Wednesday night against England at 8 p.m. So the quarterfinal was played on the big screen at East Shores. So I'm hoping that that's the case again for the semi-final on Wednesday night, that we might be able to watch Australia beat England and get into a World Cup final. So that's the Mayor's statement on current issues for this meeting. Thank you, councillors. I think that is, just bear with me until we hand over to our deputation. Thank you, councillors. I've got everything in front of me.
Just the confirmation of minutes,
Mr. Mayor. We have the confirmation in the minutes. So can I have the confirmation in the minutes for the 1st of August 2023? Khan, I'll get you to find the movers and seconders, please.
Move Councillor Braithwaite, seconding Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. No further business arising. I put that motion. All in favour? That's carried. And I'll work out how to get this room up on my big screen. Now, thank you, everyone. I'll hand over to the Deputy Mayor to introduce our deputation from the Shelter Collective. Thank you, and thank you, Khan.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And we do have a deputation this morning from the Shelter Collective, the founding members, all of the founding members, I believe, but we've got Adam Klaproth, Housing Manager from Anglicare, Michelle Coates, General Manager for Rosebery, Queensland, Michael Walls, CEO of Apprentice and Trainees Queensland, and Dave Grenfell, the Executive Management Refell and the Chair of Apprentice and Trainees Queensland. So we'll hand over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to the Gladstone Council for hosting us today. As Councillor Goodluck introduced us, we're three organisations that came together to form the Shelter Collective to combat and work on the issues in our community of homelessness and housing affordability. We came together originally due to the high volume of people that are sleeping rough both in Rockhampton and Gladstone communities. The apprentice and trainees came into the organisation to help with training people both on the building side of the projects that we do, as well as helping people into full-time employment. I think we don't need to go through all the stats. I think Council is probably already aware of the issues that is in our community. Currently in Gladstone, I think according to REIQ, we have a vacancy rate of just 1.8%, which is a very tight market for people to find homes. So if they come to our region for work, they also need homes to support their families. Also in the Gladstone community, we identify that there's two economies. There's people that will work in industry. We're fortunate enough to have coal, alumina, bauxite, gas, and there's a lot of people employed in those industries. But then there's a next level, the economy that supports our economy, which then will struggle for the lower end housing that is available. The next slide, again, I don't think we need to talk about it, is national factors. It's the inflation affecting all of our house. We're all feeling the increases. Nationally, there's 38% of households that are experiencing at least one financial stressor, and they're struggling with their finances.
So yeah, I guess a little bit about the Shelter Collective. I guess we're a community-driven collective that have come together to basically tackle the housing crisis in the regions that Michael talked about. We've got a housing shortage across the region, so we need housing for social housing, community housing, affordable housing, right through to general housing, right across the gamut. So the Shelter Collective, you know, we really are homing in on affordable housing and also that social housing sort of category to try and support the communities most vulnerable. As I sort of mentioned, this slide just sort of looks at, you know, we need all sorts of housing to get out of the housing crisis, and that includes the market rental housing as well. What makes the Shelter Collective work, I guess, is the fact that we look at combining, you know, business, governments, and community all coming and getting engaged, I guess, in the solution. And we're very much focused on that community component of this, bringing that to the table and the business industries in the housing solutions that we create. So, Dave, did you want to have a chat about current projects that we've had going?
Yeah. So, obviously what we needed to do as the Shelter Collective was make sure that we legitimised ourselves, and so we've been working pretty hard to actually put actions into place and actually get some things done. There's lots of people out there with really, really good ideas, but bringing those ideas to fruition is not as easy as what you think it is. You know, you can have the passion and the drive, but actually getting the runs on the board and actually getting anything built substantially harder So where industry, I've got an industry background, so where industry came into it was you've got housing providers, non-for-profit training companies, but not necessarily connected to industry as such. My background was 40 years with John Holland, so I have an industry background, and as such have a network through a lot of industry, building industry people. So we basically started off with 4 projects that we looked at that we believed, well, we had about 24 projects, but we decided that, you know, let's look at the least path of resistance, and they were 4 projects. So number 1 was what we called a dignity coach, which basically we've had donated. We've got the coach actually being built right now, and the idea of that is that we go out in the mornings, look for people that are sleeping rough, and there's plenty of them in Rocky, and cook them breakfast, get to understand how many people are out there, because one of the major issues that we've got is we don't really know how many people there are, because the only people that we actually count are people that are on the register, on the rental register. So there's people in caravan parks, there's people sleeping in cars, there's people couch surfing, there's other people sleeping in tents, and we don't actually know how big a problem we've got. So ideally with the bus, we'll actually have codes, and we'll start that cycle of moving them into more permanent housing by meeting them, cooking them a breakfast, letting them have a shower, being able to wash their clothes. It'll be a mobile laundry, and that's number 1 project. So that's happening as we speak, and we had the bus donated, as I said, by Rothery's. We've got the engineers designing it, and we're raising money to actually build that. The second project was a project called Art 20, which was 20 cottages that have not been lived in for over 10, 15 years, that were sitting in Rockhampton on the corner of Farm Street and Alexandra Road. They were owned by a group called Apollo Care, who took over Press Care. I managed to talk to the CEO, and we managed to get those cottages basically gifted to us on the premise that we actually rebuild them using donations and all our money. And we've actually done that. We've got 4 finished on the 24th of August. We'll open the first 4, and then we'll continue to build the next 6. So there'll be 10 out of the 20. The other 10 will be taken away. They're derelict, but they'll be put on other properties. But there'll be 10 houses available by October, November for 10 women over 50 that are sleeping rough to actually move into those cottages. As part of that, Apprentice Training Queensland has put together a training program for people to work in the aged care facility. So the dream is that, you know, lady's struggling for whatever reason, we give her a home and we give her a job, and then 2 years' time, hopefully she can afford to move into her own house or do something. So that program of getting them back on your feet and then moving in and rebuilding a life and then moving into, you know, a sustainable lifestyle. The third one, which we'll talk a little bit about, is the Shelteristic project, which was something that Rosebery basically started. And that project is something we're looking at as our next project, where both Rosebery and Anglicare will work together, if we can get the land, to actually build a number of units and have what we call wraparound services, where we have somebody there that can actually look after those people full time. So I know that you've had a delegation from Anglicare, and I think you've talked as well to people
A few years ago.
But as a shelter collective, what we would do was we would help reduce the cost of those houses to be built. So we're already talking to builders and people that do a lot of work in kind for us, and so we can actually reduce the cost of building anything and bring it to the market quicker. Everybody keeps telling me that you can't get tradies, you can't get this, you can't get that. Well, we've managed so far to refurbish 6 units in 12 weeks that were derelict, that people said couldn't be done. So we now have what I believe the runs on the board, but we've also got a lot of people wanting to participate with in-kind and donate money and help us actually do more. So our part as a shelter collective is to try and reduce the cost of that to keep the affordability at a level where people can afford to move into those houses and do it faster than, you know, basically the government can do it, actually, to be honest with you. So that's a little bit about what we're doing. And then the last project is more houses, but 3-bedroom type homes.
So we formed as a group, I think, in August last year, and so far the support has been phenomenal. We've had probably over 500,000 in financial donations, as well as in-kind support, the bus, a lot of support from community for these projects.
I think just to clarify what has been spoken to so far, we've really come together, I suppose, and I think most of you would have heard lots of stories from families and individuals. Very few people don't know someone that might be struggling with paying their rent or keep maintaining or obtaining a house. So for us, it was a problem that was impacting all of us, and particularly in Anglicare and Rosebery, we see it every day. You know, families, working families who are struggling to find a house. So it's really impacting on not just the real lower end, it's that medium end family in our communities that are struggling, and that really concerns me because you start seeing them becoming homeless or at risk of homelessness, and the stress on that family and on the kids is multiple effects on that. So for us, the concern really drove us to go, well, how can we be collaborative? How can we think outside of the box? And how can we try and, I suppose, encourage community, industry, businesses to find a way, working together, to actually create change that we're looking for. And I suppose that's the driver why we sat down and actually thought about it. There's a lot of people come to me and say, how can I help? It's not that easy to say, well, you know, you can give me money, but there's other things that people want to do. So the idea behind the Shelter Collective is to tap into that resource of people who want to make a difference, make it happen together. And I think we've seen that particularly with ARC 20 in Rockhampton, you know, raising over $500,000, almost finishing the project and having, you know, 10 women be able to be housed in a really quick turnaround. That shows just, I think we've hit the mark in giving community an opportunity to really be involved. And that can be from women ring me up and say, hey, can I help? I'll clean the houses for you. Or I'll pick up your rubbish and take it to the dump for you. And I don't know how many people. Have we counted?
Yeah, there's lots.
There would be probably close to 60 or 70 individuals and businesses who've in-kind donated, turned up to work on site to offer their labour for free. And that's really exciting because it's helping us tap into what so many people in this room and in this community want to do, is help those vulnerable people. So I think that's what's exciting about this. And I suppose I'll go back to what I'm supposed to be talking about. Our third project, which is Shelteristic. This is a project really of developing a community, a little community where we can invest in the people that are living in a community. They can support each other, we can provide wraparound support services. So it's the concept of having a safe place for people to come to know that they've got their neighbours and understand where they're at, to know that every day they've got someone they can talk to help them overcome some of the many barriers they are facing. So that's the idea about building these communities. And I think that sort of underpins everything we're trying to do, is invest in those sort of community complexes where we can provide that mutual support amongst the neighbours, but also investing, like Anglicare and Rosebery, we are in the housing and homeless sector. We spend a lot of time working with people, and to provide that, I suppose that space where we can provide that is what really the Shelteristic concept is all about. And we're looking, I suppose, at the moment for identifying land and also raising funds, which is primarily what we do. It's either in-kind support or raising funds. That's what we're all about. And working outside, I suppose, in addition to all the efforts that government is making and the investment they're making in housing.
No, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, so as they mentioned, Shelteristic is our next project. And just to touch on what they were talking about with the in-kind support, what we're talking about with that, like we have a roofing company donating, you know, Colorbond steel to us. We've got air conditioner company just donating 5 air conditioners. So it's just little contributions like that make the whole project come together and make it more cost effective for us. So it's, you know, I think we say pretty often that we can build things cheaper and faster than, you know, what we can do in the commercial market. So the shelteristic model is sort of based around a supported accommodation unit. So it's not just about building the homes for people, but it's also places like Anglicare, Rosebery and other community services using a community space to be able to wrap those supports around the people that are housed there and transition them into, you know, a longer term housing solution thereafter. So shelteristic community, so some of the stuff that we talk about, you know, again, it's around the cost effectiveness of the construction and the materials used. We do require land. That is probably the next step, is for us to identify a parcel of land to be able to develop, and ideally we're targeting this project for down here in Gladstone, ideally is where we want to locate that as well. So yeah, next steps, secure the land, secure the funding, and we'll do that through the community contacts that we've got. We haven't had any government funding to date for the Shelter Collective. It's all been raised through community support. That's not to say that we wouldn't access government funding if it is available. We just haven't. Yeah, we just haven't required or had the opportunity to go there just yet. I think pretty much now, I think we're 12 months old, aren't we? Yeah, we started in August last year, so over 12 months, and we haven't done a total tally of what the in-kind contributions and also the financial contributions that we have garnished, but we think it'll well exceed over $1 million for the projects that we've got on the go at the moment, and that's growing as we speak. We get phone calls nearly every day, so of people wanting to support. So basically the role of the Shelter Collective is to bring those funding and those resources together. As a collective, I guess, you know, as Dave mentioned, you know, his connection with industry and, you know, the experience that Michelle and Rosebery and Anglicares bring to the table with the community supports, but then it's the next level, you know, with Michael's contribution with the apprentices and trainees and developing the workforce for the future. We really try to have that holistic approach to the projects that we deliver. So just to reiterate, we are in a housing crisis. Gladstone is not immune to that. I think you're fully aware of the issues around housing affordability, and we don't expect that to lessen anytime soon. In fact, we actually think it'll get worse as more industry as industry progresses. I think you have mentioned in your council meeting already the renewable energy projects that are coming to town and that sort of thing. It's only going to put more pressure on the housing market. We also have the NRAS properties, the National Rental Affordability Scheme. Those properties are coming offline very soon. That is always on the radar, so that's a big portion of affordable homes that will now be removed from the market and go up to market rent. So we've got to be mindful of that, and I have spoken to you previously about that. So the housing crisis is real, and we need to do something about it. And you know, we want to be part of that solution as the Shelter Collective, and we hope that council will can and will support that in any way they can. Just have any questions for the group?
Thanks, Adam. Great presentation. It's great to see a collaboration that's really at the front line and getting things done. So we hear lots of talk, as you mentioned, Dave, about housing crisis, but you guys are actually making something happen. So it's great to see. Is there any other questions, councillors, for the Councillor O'Grady?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Khan. I was just wondering, how big a block of land were you trying to source?
I think we're probably talking 1,500 square metres minimum. And that will allow probably up to about 6 to 8 small houses. Probably prefer slightly larger.
Yeah, well, we would scale it. Yeah, we can scale a development to any size. You know, as Michelle mentioned, 1,500 is probably the minimum sort of thing you'd want to do for a shelteristic model, but ideally you'd probably want at least 2,000 to be completely honest. But yeah, you know, the bigger the land, we'll just design something that fits that particular parcel of land, and it might be that we do some smaller projects in different locations, or it might be one bigger project. We can be flexible with that, I suppose.
We'll go to Mr. Mayor and then yourself.
Thanks everyone. Thank you for the presentation. Sorry I'm not there in the room with you this morning. I'm sure you're aware, particularly Michelle, I'm sure you are, that there's plenty of state and federal government grants available for housing at the moment. I know you haven't thought any yet, but it's probably, getting all that in-kind support is fantastic, but there's just so much federal and state government money on the table, and you've got the runs on the board. I can't see how an application from the Shelter Collective wouldn't be successful. And if it's okay with you, I would love to send your presentation to Megan Scanlon, Queensland Minister, and let her see, maybe through Butcher, see if there is some funding that you could tap into. I'm sure you're probably already aware of it, Michelle, with others, but yeah, worth tapping in.
Councillor Branthwaite.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. A fabulous presentation, and congratulate you guys on that. I'm just looking at your prospectus on page 9 or 12, and it sort of outlines the costs and the savings associated with the shelteristic community. The savings are quite astronomical to the taxpayer, and especially with intervention. And you could, and obviously the cost of this particular model that you're looking at here is $850,000, which isn't going to break anybody's bank. Well, it might break mine, but especially with funding side of things that the Mayor's talking about, it's certainly something that you can really, cookie cutter and put it everywhere. Especially with the size of the land that Councillor Grady was sort of questioning that you've got on here, 1,700 to 2,500 square metres, and that's basically two properties joined together, and I'm sure councils, especially right around the whole neighbourhood, the CQ, have got those sort of properties that are certainly not doing anything. So really fantastic project, and I can really see some advantages in there to not only for getting people off the streets in their own home, but the mental health side of things and getting them back up and running again. So giving people a hand up, not just a hand out. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, thanks. This is same one, the shelteristic project that you're looking at here. You gave us a presentation some time ago with this layout here. Excuse me, but I thought they were 10 individual units in that particular.
Yeah, in our original proposal, but I think it's all based on the size of the land. I think our original concept was a concept.
But so that looks like a little community all by itself, and it would appear to be, there's 10 standalones there, and a central place which would be a common area for everybody. So is this the sort of thing that you're looking at for now?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
But maybe in two-bedroom style rather than one. Is that what you're saying?
I think we really just need to go with where the demand is. I know for us from Rosebery, we predominantly look at young people, so individual one-bedroom small houses make sense. But as we're seeing more and more families, and bigger accommodations requirements, would just need to adjust to that. We can't ignore that there's demand elsewhere as well, and we're happy to adapt it to suit.
We think the model would work well as a mixed tenure, so having a mixture of old people, young people and families with that same wraparound supports and creating a real community sort of environment. So it's quite flexible, which is the good thing.
And the other thing that we've done a reconnoitre of all the house builders from basically Rocky or from Yeppoon all the way through to Brisbane nearly. And looked at rates and square metre rates for basically demountable houses, which a lot of people don't like to hear the sound of, but there's some beautiful demountable houses out there. So we've managed to have some negotiations with a Yeppoon supplier, and we've got the rate down considerably, and also to the point where we're talking about now as a shelter supplying just the material and then building a one-bedroom for no labour. So you're talking about 40 grand for a one-bedroom unit. So there's people, those are the sort of things that we're exploring. Obviously we won't get 20 houses like that, but if you can get two built for 40 and the others are 100 10, you're reducing your bottom line over those 10 or 20 to a point where we can hold that price down for affordable housing, which is what our main aim is. Those negotiations have happened. We've got those partners ready to go, and they can build 20, 30, 40 houses a year now. So we just got to, we had the land, we can press the button, do the negotiations, get the funding. We can be building 40 houses a year, you know, next week, really, as soon as the documents are signed.
Has this been tried anywhere else?
I don't think so. Everybody that we talk to says, how have you done this? What sort of a model is it? Well, the first thing is everybody, apart from me, works and have got their own businesses to run. So there's no money that goes into any admin or anything. It's all volunteers.
I was meaning more the model side of things.
No, I don't think so. I don't think anybody's thought about that model of having housing providers with suppliers supplying a lot of in-kind to actually reduce the cost.
Certainly a great concept.
Can I just add to a couple of things? I think we've broken down a lot of barriers here by the group working together, and I don't think there'd be an issue with other groups if they were going to add to supporting this issue coming into the group. So it's more about the outcome. And to talk about the land, I guess we have, and this is feedback from Rosebery and Anglicare, is in our regional area, we need probably more land per square metre per person that we will put on it compared to the southeast corner, where they will build a high rise, and they can do that in the southeast corner. But feedback from our partners is in the regions we need to have more area, and these kind of development will suit the community as a whole.
Councillor O'Grady.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering with the town planning, how does that work, Lisa, with having 10 houses on one block?
It'd certainly be a consideration in regards to the land availability and what it was currently allowed to do under the rules of the planning scheme, I suppose. So we'd look at case by case on each parcel of land, what any constraints or opportunities that might be there, but that's certainly something we can have a look at.
I think you could either do it under a group title or a community title. That would be the easiest way out, I think.
I'd be happy to take the question on notice and come back with some advice. I don't want to lead you down the garden path, Councillor Cameron.
It wasn't really a question, it's just a suggestion. But, you've got a project start in July 2024, it's not that far away. So if you could secure suitable land in Gladstone, you could make a start on that date, do you believe? Okay. Because if you look, say, 2,000 square metres roughly, and you put 6 dwelling units on it, that's a pretty good, efficient way of using land. So, yeah.
And the other great thing is you've got these two housing providers partnering in we're doing Gladstone, which I don't think has been done before either. They're normally working independently.
We do. We typically the way funding is sort of, organisations like Anglicare and Rosebery would be competing for the same bucket of money, but we've decided this is a better approach, and we want to get the outcomes for the community more so than it's about building our organisations or anything like that. So.
Thank you. There's no further questions, councillors. No. Councillor Trevor.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Thank you so much for coming along for another great presentation. It was interesting because I was on my way to Brisbane last week and I was listening to the radio, and the radio interviewer was interviewing the Prime Minister on the Art 20 project. And of course, the Prime Minister indicated that his preference was to come up and visit your project as opposed to doing the 20-kilometre swim around Great Keppel Island on the weekend. And of course, I served in federal parliament with the Prime Minister, and it was great to hear his interest being piqued in relation to your project. And I think he gave almost an undertaking that he might come up and visit you. to see that project. And it'd be great if he could, at the same time, come to Gladstone and see one that's happening in our community, because from my perspective, having been involved in all of the NRAS projects in the Gladstone area during that period of 2007 to 2011, my greatest concern is that when they end, a lot of disadvantaged and dishevelled and disorientated and underprivileged people in our community will be left with nowhere to go, simply because while interest rates continue to remain static or in fact increase, rents are going to continue to increase also. And that's just a fact, it's an economic fact. So it does worry me, and I would plead with the federal government to extend that NRAS program, because it was so critically important to our community and to regional Australia back then in 2007. It's equally, if not more importantly, important to revisit that decision to end it and to actually extend it, because I don't think we have the safety net there at the moment to protect the most vulnerable in our society. And of course, going back to when I was original member of the Gladstone Youth Crisis Accommodation Centre on that committee, which eventually of course morphed into Rosebery, the problems back then were still the same as they are today, except that the problem now has become more severe. And we can talk about many reasons why, as a nation, we haven't dealt with that issue. In the 40 years that I've been involved in, the original house that was available in the Gladstone community to home our homeless. And of course our population has grown and the problem has grown with it. And despite all the policy and despite all the guidelines and despite all the money being put into various community programs and incentivising things to happen, things haven't really changed. In those 40 years in which I've been involved in initially understanding the problems of homelessness and then trying to deal with them in this community, my greatest concern is that I won't be here at this table to see the next boom that will ultimately come to our community as an industrialised city. And we must never forget the mistakes that we made in the past in relation to the previous LNG boom. And in fact, we need to now be ahead of that game because I don't ever want to see our community paying the poor to leave this community because a boom was happening in this community. I think it's incumbent on all community leaders, both federal, state and local, to act now in relation to homelessness, because when the next boom arrives, whether it be hydrogen or otherwise, we again won't have the capacity to deal with it. And it saddens me and will sadden me even further if we allow that to happen again. We need to have a strong voice with your assistance to help us deliver to this community something that has been wanting for the past 40 years. And I congratulate you on your efforts that you've made in Rockhampton. I think it's time that we looked at something for this community that levels or even betters our Rockhampton northern counterparts. It's an issue that has been part of my life for many years, and I dearly hope that a project or projects such as yours takes flight in this community with the support of all community members, and hopefully, as I say, the Prime Minister will be available to meet and hopefully open a project in this community as well as yours in Rockhampton. So thank you so much for your input. Thank you for your commitment to the underprivileged and the disadvantaged in our society. I'm overwhelmed by your presentation this morning, and I'm truly grateful for it.
Thank you. And if there's nothing further, I did notice on your founding members list there's also Donna Kirkland and Grant Mathers, who I assume are the councillors from Rockhampton Regional Council as well. So great to see, and we acknowledge them for their input as well. But absolutely, if you do find land here in the region, I'm sure we'll have more discussions about what council might be able to do there. But we can also offer a pre-lodgement meeting with our planning team. We can go through all those potential issues on how we might be able to move forward with the project. But just lastly, if there is anyone out there watching or listening today that wants to get involved, how do they make contact with yourself? Where do they go to find the contact details so they can get involved with the project?
We have a website up. That's thesheltercollective,
Say it again.
It's one word, thesheltercollective.com.au. You can go on the website and make donations or contact us and we'll ring you back.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, guys, and thank you for your presentation, and we look forward to seeing this project move forward. Sorry, we do need a resolution, councillors, to accept the deputation. Moved Councillor Hanson, second Councillor Branthwaite. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare it carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move now on to the officers' reports. Item number G/4.1, 2022-23 operational plan, quarter 4 final report. And we welcome the General Manager for People and Strategy, Carly Quinn. And we'll hand over to Carly and Kim. Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. Good morning, community, and Mayor online. So the report before you today is the final progress report for the 22-23 operational plan. The report presents outcomes for the business as of 30th of June 2023, including highlights from this quarter, April to June. We have adopted 8 initiatives in this year's operational plan, or last year's operational plan, across all 5 of our corporate plan goals that are helping us to progress on the commitments we've made to connect, innovate and diversify. All 8 of those 22-23 and the 2 extended from the previous year are now complete, keeping us on track to deliver our corporate plan 21-26. This year we've achieved 100% delivery of the operational plan, as I just mentioned, and that is the first time in 10 years, so something definitely for our business and our people to celebrate. This achievement reflects our improving project management capability and is a testament of the successful implementation of our project management framework across the business. This is also a testament to the dedication of our operational plan initiative leads and the cross-functional approach to the project delivery teams. Some of the highlights from the report include Central Queensland's largest environmental awareness event, EcoFest, was held in June with more than 6,000 people in attendance. This year we had our biggest ever plant sale with over 3,000 plants from over 105 species, all propagated at our own Tondoon Botanic Gardens. Our customer solutions team handled just over 113,000 interactions this year and decreased average wait times from 6 minutes early in the year all the way down to under 1 minute in quarter 4. They also receive more than 85% of our service requests within 10, we resolve more than 85% of our service requests in 10 days, and that's the highest resolution rate that we've seen in about 5 years. The GECC welcomed over 95,000 patrons this year and saved about $125,000 in wages thanks to the amazing Friends of the Theatre volunteers who ushered in over 2,200 hours across the year. I should make mention of our very special Friend of the Theatre here today. Our CEO is one of those volunteers. Our strategic grants team successfully sourced over $33 million through our grant opportunities and funding allocations. In May, our Economic Transition Roadmap won the 2023 LGMA Queensland Local Government Managers Association Queensland Awards for Excellence in the collaboration category. And a project to revegetate the Turkey Beach shoreline brought together our parks and conservation teams as well as volunteers from the local community and Turkey Beach Rural Fire Brigade to plant 1,000 new plants. That's almost 18% of the total plants that were planted across the region this year, which was just over 5,600 plants in the region. The Gladstone Region Waste Plan was finalised and our contribution to the Central Queensland Region of Councils supported the delivery of the CQ Regional Waste Management Plan. So we're now in a really strong position, more than ever, to build sustainable waste management practices with and for our community. We completed development of the 23 to 25 Innovate RAP, which will help us build our reconciliation journey and embed First Nations considerations into the way we work. There's also a number of data highlights that you can find within the report. Some are just specific to the quarter and others are representative of the 12-month journey. You'll be able to see those. And if you'd like to know more about the successes that we had this year and some of the challenges, you can find them. They'll be published in this report online today. Just before we finish, after the agenda had been published, we did find 3 minor errors in the report, which is why we've just tabled a new version for you here today. But for the public's benefit, on page 11, we referenced the 2021 value of assets being $3.3 billion instead of the 2022 value of $3.5 billion. Pick that up. On page 11, we referenced a tentative figure for funding sourced of over $29 million, which was later confirmed to be $33 million. And on page 17, we just adjusted the formatting on the picture. So we have got a new new resolution for you to consider, which includes these amendments, and the new version will be the one that is published online. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Excellent report, Carly. I just think it's some amazing successes in here. Just probably for a footnote of those people that are watching, I'm on page 21 of the report, and it talks about recycling and waste. It's becoming a bigger and bigger concern as the years go on. Like we skied about the fact that we've got 3,500 tonnes worth of recycling and there's still 19,500 tonnes going to landfill. Is this reduced from last year? Do you know if there's major reductions?
I'm going to pass that one over to Kim because she is the lead of our internal waste working group, so I'm sure she'll be able to answer that better than me.
Yes, we are reducing, and our rates for domestic waste are actually tracking really well for the state targets. So we are reducing year on year. So
it's ultra important that we are reducing because of the fact that the government levy, every tonne that goes into landfill is a cost with it. A major cost. So, I think what the likes of the waste forums and the LawMac that Councillor Rick's on, they provide a great input and insight into the future of waste collection, and it's nice to see those figures start to come down, and the benefit to our community is reduced in costs, so which is pretty cool. Thank you.
Councillor Hanson.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just commenting on the actual report from the page 8, I think it is, of the page 7, and it's in this report too as well, the works delivery, and it's good to see that we're moving in the right direction in the maintenance sector, but just a question on the IDF with project delivery. Have we prioritised and systemised the IDF items into a manageable units now? Like we were having some difficulty, looking at projects that probably shouldn't have been in the IDF in the first place. It should just be maintenance. Is that having a smooth movement in that, in bringing those out?
Yeah. So what you're talking about is there has been a small piece of work going on at the moment to look at the what goes through the IDF and how do we make it simple, for example, with maintenance, and how do we just enable maintenance to happen. So that is part of that works delivery project, and it's part of the current deliverables that are being worked on right now. So I couldn't tell you that it's finalised, but it's very much actively getting worked on right now. The actual investment decision framework, though, is well embedded across the business, and for those projects that really need it, such as new investments, which is what it was originally designed for, it is being well used across the business for those new investments. What we want to do is just make it easier and see what are the projects that are potentially getting caught up in it that we need to release. That's the work happening
That was my
now.
question.
Yes.
I didn't put it in the right way, but how's that process going?
So that work's underway right now.
And the other one was on page 8. Sorry, the other one was on page 8 of the operational plan. And Carly, are you leading now the creative, constructive culture?
Yes.
Moving
Yes.
forward?
Yes, so it is a
And
business-wide...
you say it's finished, but it's over a 3-year period.
It is, so the
So
amount
how
of...
can we say it's finished when it's over a 3-year period? That was my point.
Okay, are you talking about the metrics, or is there wording that says finished? I'll just check
It does
what-
say that it's completed.
Oh, when it says completed,
It does
yeah.
say completed.
Yeah. So
But it's a process over 3 years.
Absolutely, it is, and we're about to approach our remeasure now.
And
so-
you're leading it, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So when we say completed, it's the body of work that we committed to do in that particular year. That
Yeah,
particular piece
I
of work is
understand that, yeah.
completed, yes. Yep.
I was just having a bit of a go. I
Thank
did
you.
understand that. But,
Yes, it is still going.
and so you're happy with the progression of that, of the culture change and?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
We're
influencing the culture in our working group?
Yeah, so our Pulse survey had some good signs for us and some good indicators, and we're really looking forward to the culture remeasure in October this year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. We'll go to the Mayor and then Councillor Muscat.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Carly. It is a great report, and it's fantastic to see so many achievements in that plan there. But can you go back to the errors that were corrected, please, and show me on the pages where they were? There were some big numbers in there. I'd like to see them, please.
Yep. On page 11, on page 11 in the first paragraph under our challenges, 22-23 trends, our challenges, around about the 5th line down, we referred to our assets, the value of our assets being 3.3 billion, and the correct is 3.5.
Sorry, was that the only one? I thought I heard a couple
No,
more.
sorry. Next one is also on page 11. We referenced a tentative figure for our funding. So the figure that we had at the time of when this report was finalised was 22 million. We've now confirmed it to be 33 million. So the new version, the version on the screen is the one that was attached to the agenda. The new version tabled here in the room says 33 million. And that is under our successes on the right-hand side column, around about the 6th line down.
Excellent. I can see that. So that's obviously because we've had more grants come in since the report was drafted. Not like, okay, thank you. That's good news. So obviously, I was just wondering how that many million gets missed out of a report. But it's because we have been more successful with grants coming in since the time of the report being written. And was there a third one?
The third one is on page 17. And it was just a formatting update on the image. So there's a large image there with the EcoFest. So it's not an error necessarily. It was just because we were republishing the report, we took an opportunity to improve the formatting on that page with the logos.
Thanks, Carly. For those listening online, they might think, how do you make that many $1 million error? It's not that at all. It's that we've had more funds come in than when it first published. So yeah, I was sitting here thinking, can you run over them? They seem to go over that very quickly, but fantastic report, well done.
Thank you,
The amended oh, it's not on the screen, was on the screen, sorry.
Councillor Muscat, did you have a...
Thank you. Thanks, Carly. And I guess, yeah, well, this is a very good result from an operational perspective. We set this operational plan together, and thank you, Lisa. I mean, you are the CEO of this organisation, and it is your job to deliver the operational plan, and you have. So congratulate you, and obviously congratulate everyone else, but you are driving this, and I just want to recognise that. I really appreciate, some of the highlights that we put in here, and they are sometimes, they're those feel-good things, our EcoFest situations, some of the volunteers we have, and that's great. I just want to highlight some of those other things that are a little bit, kind of some things that might not be so much fun, or how, people put it, like, sexy projects or things that are... There are a couple of things that we have completed that I believe will set us up for a number of years to come, and while this is, whatever is going to happen in the next few years, is going to benefit from what we did this year. And some of those things are, for example, the enable future industries without infrastructure. I know it's not a simple thing, and we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know the future, but we have started doing this work, and just in case people don't fully understand what it is, these are the things that we have to do before anything else happens. And if we don't have this done, at least some of it done, by the time things come, we won't know anything at all, really, and we'll be behind a lot. The same with waste. We have completed a number of things that I see as the basis of a number of things that will happen in the future. So I'm very happy that these things have happened. I'm also quite, I guess, satisfied about the flexibility that we have had during the year in relation to how we adapted to a few issues, from maintenance to, workforce and other things. So I really, I'm looking forward to see how all of this work is going to be reflected in the next few years. And I guess, yeah, while, I don't know if it's going to be perfect, I know it's going to be better than if we didn't have it. So thank you. And if no one else would like to, I'd like to move that we accept this report.
So we've got an alternate recommendation there.
Oh, sorry, yeah, of course.
So you move the alternate recommendation,
Yeah,
Councillor
thank
Muscat?
you.
Yep, move Councillor Muscat. I'll get a seconder. Seconded Councillor O'Grady. I'll make sure I get you next time, Councillor Hanson. I apologise sincerely.
That's okay, if you're always looking left, yes.
But before we put the motion, it is quite an interesting report. There was a couple of just points that this is the frontline activity that happens as well, and how it impacts people's lives who lives within our region. I think there was 230,000 visits to our Gladstone region libraries, which is pretty exceptional considering we've only got a population of about 63,000. So that means everyone's gone to the library at least 4 times this year. So that goes to show how popular our libraries are. Another interesting thing was, I think it was 2,200 potholes filled, which is more than double the number of potholes that were filled last year. So congratulations and thank you to the efforts for our teams there. And I think there was over 5,500 trees planted with our partners, with Conservation Volunteers Australia and many others as well. So this is a lot of the work that happens behind the scenes that people don't necessarily see all the time, but that council delivers each and every day for our region. So we do have a mover and a seconder. Is there any further comments? Councillor Trevor?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of things, Carly. Firstly, congratulations on the report and everyone who was involved in the preparation and delivery of it. My first question is, there's no reference in the report to the increase in GORBS receipts that we received last financial year. I see that in our successes section, it refers to, we're also proud to share that we successfully sourced over $33 million of funding, reducing our reliance on ratepayer revenue. Would you be able to help me, or would Mark be able to help me and let me know, for the benefit of our listeners, how much the GORB receipts were for the last financial year?
Yes. I'll invite Mark to answer the specifics if he has them, but just for your reference, that kind of data would be in our annual report, so we are still collating that. This is predominantly about Q4, but there is also some annual data in there, as you would have noticed, but that full disclosure will be in the annual report. Mark, did you have any commentary, or would you like to take it? 8.8 million.
So that's $8.8 million that we received. Yeah, okay, all right. I wasn't sure whether it was or was not to be included in here. I just wanted to make a big shout out to our Mayor in relation to that funding that relieves ratepayers in relation to all manner of things. And thank you, Mayor, for your efforts back in 2016 when you marched down to George Street and demanded that we continue to receive those receipts, and $8.8 million this financial year, or last financial year, is not an amount to be scoffed at. So thank you, Mayor. A big shout out to our Mayor in relation to that. The second issue I had in relation to the report was on page 7, enabling future industries with our infrastructure completed. And the reference there, Council now has a strong foundation for working with proponents with clarity around what the shared infrastructure requirements are within the GSDA and what that means for new investments in the area. Additional funding was required to address an increase in the scope for our technical analysis. The reasons for and impact of this is shared in the attached report. I just wanted to make sure, Carly, that you were properly resourced in relation to identifying to both the proponents and state and federal government what our hardcore infrastructure and social infrastructure is going to be in the event of another increase in industrial activity, which is much anticipated by most, but of course we need to ensure in the future, in the event of the hydrogen industry proceeding in this community, that the ratepayer burden is not of such an overwhelming nature that people will eventually say to our community, enough is enough, we don't want any future industrial activity in this community, which would be a great shame, of course, because we have one of the best ports in the world. We are blessed by that advantage over most communities on the east coast of Australia, and I would hate to see resistance from the community in relation to future industrial development because of the fact that we are continually burdened with picking up the cost of these new projects. And I wanted to make absolutely sure that we are not only on top of our game but ahead of our game in relation to making sure that both the proponents of these new industries, including hydrogen, and the state and federal government are very much aware of the actual infrastructure cost that is going to be incurred as a result of coming to our community, building a project and working in our community in the future?
Thank you. It's a very good question. I think the answer starts with the transition roadmap that we did last year. What it did was open up the doorways and the conversations right across the country around the impacts for communities like ours, and in particular the impacts that we will potentially have. And with those doors open and those ears listening, we've had a number of conversations, and that roadmap has really enabled those conversations. The Assets and Environments team have then done the work to assess what the current state of the GSDA area is and what our common user infrastructure is in there, what its capacity is, and what the potential requirement's going to be, what that gap looks like, and how to fill that gap, and the enormous cost, potential cost to close that gap. Whether that's accommodated by government or proponents, or a combination of both, that's what the advocacy is about, is how do we close that gap. But the gap is known, and we have very active, regular conversations happening with all levels of government in that space now. So we cannot rest. I think you're right. This needs to be a priority for us ongoing, and we need to continue to ensure that we've got internal resources allocated in this space, which we absolutely do.
Thank you. Thank you, Carly. We had a mover in Councillor Muscat and a seconder in Councillor O'Grady, I think it was. Yes? No further questions? We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. We move now to item number G/4.2, the monthly financial report for the period ending 31 July 2023, and we'll hand over to the General Manager for Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes.
Morning, Mayor. Morning, councillors. The first item today that from the finance perspective is we've got our monthly financial report for the period ending 31 July 23. So this is obviously our first month of reporting against our 23-24 budget. So essentially a lot of the figures you see are essentially reflecting the infancy of the reporting period. So certainly from a revenue perspective, looking quite, essentially got a lot of our one-off revenue that is still, will come in through the year at particular points. So particularly with respect to our grants, some of those income tax equivalents, and those receipts are well behind where we would expect to be. So at this point, $16 million worth of recurrent revenue has been received out of that budget. So that's a bit below pro rata, but pretty much in line with where we would expect to be. Our biggest source of operating grants this year is our REPA, so essentially our disaster recovery piece, and we are separating that out for reporting purposes. So more for effect, essentially, for this month, but what we will see as the work progresses, so some $37 million worth of work's been approved to date. We will see that populated with the work that's been worked through. At the moment, we've got some internal crews working through that, and we're looking at letting some contracts with respect to that in the very near future. With respect to expenditure, again, still reflects that infancy of the reporting year, but very much on track with where we would be for this time of year. Capital spend, probably a normal statement for us at this time of year is that we are probably a little bit behind from a pro rata perspective, but in line with where we're expecting to be. So around about $3.6 million of that increased capital spend as part of the 23-24 budget has been spent. So we've got $68 million budgeted this year for capital, and essentially at 5% of budget at this point in time. One thing that I would like to point out to councillors is the state government has released essentially new financial management sustainability guidelines, and essentially what at the tail of our financial reports we are going to be reporting on those. So essentially we were including those ratios, so there's been some minor amendments made to those that'll see us essentially required to report on those in our annual compliance documents, so our financial statements, our annual reports and the like. But certainly as we have been doing, we believe it's good practice to be bringing those to you on a monthly basis so you can see those trends emerging through the year. So council is a tier 3 council that's been within that. So essentially groups us with essentially similar councils with population in and around the 100,000 mark and below. So we've got our Rockhampton, Bundaberg, and the like in that group with us. So what we've done is we've essentially we'll have got a separate table there of those ratios that track our performance both year to date, but also we're required to show a 5-year average. So we'll show you that, and we've also got that demonstrated there in a number of little essentially heat graphs there just to show where we sit. The idea of splitting councils into the various tiers is recognising that for some tiers, it's probably reasonable to expect that you are going to have some variation in those ratios, particularly with respect to potentially your asset sustainability ratio, particularly if you're in a high growth council and the like, you'd expect that ratio to be essentially well below 80 to 90% because essentially you're building a lot of new assets. Whereas if you've got a very essentially mature council, not much growth, essentially going to be looking at trying to make sure you're maintaining that overall. But also recognises the challenges for some of those smaller councils with respect to operating positions, and therefore it's recognising that it is tough for them to make an operating surplus, and they're essentially relying on some of those extraordinary income streams to make a return. So certainly, so what we've done there is you've got that heat map that shows red, yellow, green. That reflects where those ratios sit in that new guideline where we sit. So provided for your information there, and we'll continue to update that on a monthly basis. So you'll see the budget line represented in there in white on that graph. Try to pick somewhere where it could highlight that out. But also the dark blue line recognises where we currently sit. So you'll see that move along that continuum as the year progresses. But happy to take any questions with respect to the report.
Councillor Hanson.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just a question on the sustainability guideline. It's the first one that's been done first time it's been upgraded since 2013, is that right?
Yeah, it's first.
And it says version 1. Does that mean that that's the final version, or are we getting guideline 2023 version 1, it says here?
Yeah, well, that is what we're reporting against. Yep. So
it will be changed though, or may be changed?
We'll see what the state government does with respect to that. It's the state government. We're essentially, these are essentially the 9 indicators, the ones that are in that guideline, and that's what we're.
Yep, you only follow what you're told to do by the boss.
Essentially, so yeah, this is essentially just complying with the state government. Yep.
No further questions, councillors. Do we have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Move Councillor Branthwaite, seconded Councillor Trevor. I put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. We move now on to item number G/4.3, tender RPQS waste grinding services. Back to you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm joined online this morning by Christy Wachner, our Manager of Contracts and Procurement. She's feeling a little unwell, so just didn't want to share her germs in the room. So happy to take any questions with respect to this report. She'll be able to help us. So this is our essentially our waste grinding services that we're going out for, essentially those pre-qualified suppliers. This is an area that is essentially we do need to make sure that we do keep up to date and we stay on top of. As such, particularly, it is a high risk area. You know, we've got those waste stockpiles in that green waste area that is essentially subject to combustion at various times. So essentially it's important that we stay on top of that and have various contractors engaged and been able to engage when we do get those stockpiles built. So essentially we make sure that we are reducing that risk. We have received a number of offers for that, and we are recommending the engagement of 3 providers underneath that RPQS for a period of a 1-year term, then three 1-year extensions.
Councillors, any questions, or do I have a mover for the recommendation?
Pretty straightforward, Mr Chair. I'd like to move the recommendation.
Move the recommendation, Councillor Hanson, seconding Councillor Branthwaite. Nothing further. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. Item number G/4.4, tender RPQS, provision of water and wastewater maintenance services and materials. And back to you, General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This item is with respect to looking at establishing a new RPQS with respect to our water and wastewater maintenance services. So this has been born out of our works delivery and maintenance journey, and looking at through how do we make it easier for our teams on the ground to make sure that they've got access to those suppliers that can assist us and our teams in delivering for the community. So as we get our work better planned, we can make sure that we are engaging these people to assist us along the way. So we had heard that there was various issues with terms of engagement with the number of these providers. So what we're trying to do is make it easier for our team leaders and our crews on the ground to make sure that we can get the right support at the right time. So we have essentially bundled up various packages of work here. So essentially we've got our maintenance services, so that's looking at our full system. So we've got a number of closed water and wastewater systems, and as well as our biogas and biosolids facilities. But then we've also got various consumables and componentry that's required to support that as well. So essentially we've got two portions that we've established, so portion A for those maintenance services and portion B for those essentially consumables and components. So we have received a number of essentially offers with respect to that, and following the assessment of those offers, we're looking at establishing an RPQS with respect to 19 providers. That is part of the recommendation.
Councillors, any questions? No? Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Grady. Seconding Councillor Cameron. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. Item number G/4.5, expenditure approval insurance services. Back to you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this item is with respect to seeking your approval with respect to essentially regularising our insurance expenditure with Jardine Lloyd Thompson, not Jared Lloyd Thompson, as per the recommendation. So we'll seek a clarification and amendment to that resolution. So essentially we have worked with JLT, Jardine Lloyd Thompson, to provide us insurance services.
Sorry, Mark, we'll just go to the Mayor quickly.
Yep. Yep.
Again, on this one, LGM,
yep.
Local Government Mutual being subsidiary of LGAQ. Lisa, is this a conflict that I declared previously I should probably leave?
Don't have that at hand, but it'd certainly be advice that you consider that, given the relationship with LGAQ and your position on the board.
Yeah, it's easier if I just leave. This always comes up and I forget this one because it's just, anyway, it is what it is. I'll end the Zoom if you can call me.
So, Mr. Mayor, would you like to just state the nature of the conflict?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Well, my conflict is that I'm the Central Queensland representative on the Local Government Association of Queensland Policy Executive and a board member of the Local Government Association of Queensland, which is represents all councils in the state, but also is the manager of the authority that manages LGM. LGM is a subsidiary, I guess, of LGAQ.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And you're
Lisa?
opting to...
I'll just leave the room, yeah. I'll just
leave the room for this matter. Thank you.
I'll hang up.
Thanks, Mark. Back to you.
Yep. Yep. So we engaged Jardine Lloyd Thompson through LGM Assets to provide essentially those insurance services across essentially all of our asset classes, but they also, as you would be aware of the number of resolutions we've made in previous meetings with respect to our public liability and work care insurance services also. So there is a number of policies that make up this expenditure, and they're listed in there. But principally, it's in and around essentially our fleet and our our buildings and assets, and making sure that we've got the appropriate cover with respect to those should the unforeseen happen. So there is, as foreshadowed, the need to probably just to correct the spelling there in there. Autocorrect's done a great job. It should be Jardine Lloyd Thompson, not Jared Lloyd Thompson in the recommendation.
Thank you, Mark. So that's the same recommendation we have. Yes. Right. So do we have any questions, Councillor Hanson?
I'm happy to move it. What's the movement, percentage movement up in premium this year, if you may?
It actually varies. We've had some of the smaller premiums that we've seen a small decrease, but generally across our assets it can be up to 20% increase, a little bit more than what we
I was looking at the
total.
Had expected. I was looking at the total. So.
Yeah, as a package in the report, it's certainly it's 14% as a package, but as I
Still
say,
expensive,
but not necessarily. It's not consistently. Yeah.
Thank you. Happy to move.
Move, Councillor
Deputy Mayor.
Hanson. Seconded, Councillor Branthwaite. So just for clarity, that was the amended motion, Councillor Hanson, yep.
Yes.
No
yes.
further questions? No. Put the motion, all those in favour, we declare it carried. Thank you. If we can invite the Mayor back, and we will move on to item number G/4.6, Audit Risk and Improvement Committee meeting minutes, 14 June 2023. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This item is with respect to essentially your receiving the minutes from our Audit Risk and Improvement Committee that was held on the 14th of June. Essentially, that's our regular quarterly meeting we have with that committee. You'll note there's obviously a number of reports tabled that particularly in and around our risk management activities, but also with respect to our external audit updates, our internal audit updates, and working through our essentially our plans for 23-24 for our internal audit. Not sure whether the members from the committee wanted to add any more, but certainly happy to table the minutes for your. Essentially, just got to receive those.
Any questions, councillors? Comments? No. Do we have a mover? Moved, Councillor Cameron. Seconded, Councillor O'Grady. Nothing further. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. Item number G/4.7, review of the community investment policy. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
And Kylie, sorry.
Yeah. So we've got Kylie Lee joining us, our General Manager of Community and Lifestyle, to take us through the report. So essentially, as we go through all of our policies, we review them, taking on board feedback and looking for improvement opportunities, essentially looking through our community investment policy. And as we've outworked that over the previous, essentially 12 months, there's a number of items that we've just making some minor amendments with respect to the policy to just give effect to essentially Council's wishes in that space. I'm not sure whether Kylie wanted to take any more with respect to that.
Thank you, Mark, and definitely acknowledging the amount of work that the governance team has supported in this policy change. What you're seeing in front of you is the result of a consolidated policy and standard, and then the development of some community investment policy guidelines to support our region to actually apply for the investment program. We've also addressed several feedback from councillors, including partial funding and how we allocate investments within the budget that we have. We also have put funding application limits on several of our several of our program areas. We've also included another waste stream to support our environment groups to undertake some waste cleanups on beaches, etc. And we've also provided greater clarity around the assessment of applications, which is some feedback from councillors previously. happy to invite any questions.
Thanks, Kylie. Any questions, councillors? I think the amendments will hopefully be good and get better clarity, and I appreciate the time gone into some additional considerations, particularly for the beach cleanups and some of our community organisations, so that's great. Councillor O'Grady, did you... Sorry, Mr Mayor?
I did, but I think you said exactly that. I think, well done, Kylie.
Sorry.
You've taken on board everything that councillors and community members have raised, and I think in the Councillor Hanson and Councillor Trevor would remember, you can, no matter how hard you try, it's very difficult to get this right, because everyone expects something different. It's one of the things that community will always disagree with, but I think you've done an outstanding job of trying to take on board all the feedback. Well done.
Thanks,
I
Mr
think
Mayor.
that thanks really does need to go to the governance team as well. They honestly have put a lot of effort into consolidating all of this work, so thank you.
Councillor Muscat?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to, it is, thank you, because there's a lot of things we discussed over the last 12 months and, from timings to the limits of maximum amount of money and the waiving of some of the fees for transfer stations for certain things. There's a lot of things in here that I actually forgot that we raised them at some stage. So thank you for having a list of all those things to the governance team as well. I wanted to just check a little bit more about that expression of interest, maybe. I think Councillor Hanson also wants to know about that.
It's okay, you've taken it up.
Because obviously it's a new thing. And also, do we have at the end of each application some sort of question to ask people for feedback? I know that it's common practice at the end of each application to say, is there anything you'd like to tell us about this application? Have you found it easy or hard to do? Or that could be just a continuous way of continuing to collect feedback from people.
Yeah.
Certainly, I'll answer the expression of interest question first. So yes, you're correct, Councillor Muscat. This is the first time that we will be doing an EOI for our impact, destination and signature events, and that's really to ensure the fair distribution of that funding amount. We'll be inviting the expressions of interest, and we will go through and we'll go through and assess those as per the assessment matrix that we have listed in the policy. With respect to continuous feedback, we do 2 rounds of our road shows per year, where we do invite feedback. But you're right, we probably could increase the exposure that people can give us constant feedback on the application process.
Yeah, thank you. I've done it in other applications where at the end people don't have to put anything. It's not compulsory, but I think it's the expression of interest will also. I hope it's not people in the community don't see it as another head or another obstacle to go through, but I think it's important that we align some of our intentions or vision for the next 12 months or the next couple of years to support certain things. So if people see it from that point of view, we want to invest also in the things that we believe will have an increased impact in a way, because we're also working on some other things, so we believe there are some things that are of a priority. So, and I think if we make that clear, people will see where we're going with it. So things make more sense when you try to support people that are also focusing on the same things that we are. Doesn't mean that those ones that are not don't get the same look, but again, this is the investment money that we need to make sure that provides the maximum return on investment, I guess. So that's where I'm coming from. I think it would be great to see it evolve and see where it goes, and then we can have a look next year how people think of it, and what outcomes we get out of that. So thank you.
Tanya, and then we'll go to Councillor Hanson.
I was just going to add, Councillor Muscat, we are planning to do an annual review of this in line with the same time we do the budget so that we can capture that.
Councillor Hanson.
Thanks, Kylie, and thanks to the governance team. I think you've captured everything that we questioned over the last period of 6 months or whatever it has been since we've been investigating this. And I don't know whether you said mark, it's just a minor change, but if you look at the mark changes in red, there are a few, but most of them are just wording changes, that's all. So all of the things that we were concerned about was covered, so thank you.
It's a really good point, Councillor Hanson, that a lot of that markup is a result of combining the standard and the policy. Yeah.
I'm happy to move, Mr Chair.
Mover and Councillor Hanson for the officer's recommendation. Yes. Yep. Councillor Braithwaite, did you second? Yep. No further questions. Mr Mayor's all good. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? We'll declare it carried. Thank you. And we'll move now on to G/4.8 Regional Arts Development Funding Round 2022-23 Outback Mine Foundation additional funding request, and hand over to yourself, Kylie. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This resolution is for an additional RADF funding of $4,935 for the Outback Mine Foundation to complete their Healing Men's Mind film, which is an incredibly great initiative. Unfortunately, the standard of the production wasn't to cinematic quality. Therefore, there's a few amendments that need to be done to the film before it is ready for premiere on the 1st of September. This has been assessed by our RADF committee and all are in favour, so I'm presenting it today for your endorsement.
Thanks, Kylie. I'd like to move that one and call for a seconder before we... Councillor Cameron, are there any questions or comments? No? Everyone's happy with that. Put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. And we'll move now to councillors' reports. Mr Mayor, did you have anything? You're on mute, Mr Mayor, sorry.
God, technology, you'd think I'd have it by now. I left out of my mayor's statement, which the email didn't get to me in time, is obviously on Friday we will commemorate the Vietnam Vets Day, 50 years since the anniversary of Australians' involvement in the Vietnam War. There will be services across the Gladstone region, and I encourage everyone to visit their local RSL Facebook website for more information on when services will be held in the Gladstone region. However, the Department of Veteran Affairs will deliver a televised service to mark the 50th anniversary, and that will be broadcast on ABC on Friday from 10 a.m. for those who can't make it to a service in the Gladstone region, or anyone listening right around Queensland or around Australia at the moment. If you can't get to a service on Friday, it will be televised 10 a.m. on ABC. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. No further councillor reports. Councillor O'Grady.
Sorry, I thought Mr Mayor may have done this, but I'd just like to congratulate Boston Leather, who won the open bull ride at the Mount Isa Rodeo, a Calliope lad. So congratulations to Boston.
Good stuff.
Yeah, well done, Boston. I put it all over Facebook. I think I've congratulated him enough, but thank you, Councillor O'Grady, for adding it to the minutes.
All right, thank you. We've got no urgent business items, there's no notice of motion, and there's no confidential items. So we will declare the meeting closed at 10:35 a.m. Thank you.
you.